88% of students are using AI on their assignments right now, and the big response from most education organizations: detection, restriction, and punishment. But the RAND research group found something that most people aren't really talking about. Over 80% of students also said that no teacher has really taught me how to use AI for schoolwork. We skipped the teaching and went straight to the policing and punishing. And that means that we've misdiagnosed the problem. This is not a cheating crisis. It's actually not even a thinking crisis. Today, I'm going to share why I believe this is a human agency crisis. Now, think about what's happening in AI right now. The entire industry is racing to build AI agents. These are systems that are designed to plan, decide, and act autonomously. Agency is the goal, and that's where their investment is going. That's where every major lab is building toward and what every new update is about. And today, I want to show you something. Watch what happens when I open up ChatGPT and ask this simple question. Where does the word agent come from? And you'll see it says it comes from the Latin agere, to act. An agent is literally one who acts. The entire premise of AI agents is building machines that can act on their own, set goals, evaluate progress, adjust strategy. Now, I want you to hold that definition for a moment and walk with me into a classroom. Students there are being told what to read, what to write, how to format things, when things are due, and an exact rubric that they have to follow, telling them exactly what success looks like. Where's the acting? Where's the agency? We are building AI to be agents while designing learning for humans that produces the complete opposite, which is compliance. We're investing billions in AI that acts while designing learning where students don't have to. If a student can generate a draft in seconds, synthesize research instantly, and iterate ideas at scale using these tools, the question shouldn't be how do we catch them? The question is, what are we actually asking and developing in them? Because right now, the answer for most schools, like I said, is compliance. And compliance is the one thing AI does better than any human ever will. Hi everyone, if you don't know me, I'm Dr. Saba Kidwai, CEO and futurist at Designing Schools. And after years of working across education, technology, leadership, keynoting globally, and working with teams at Apple, Canva, LinkedIn, and school systems across multiple countries, the pattern is always the same. The institutions that get stuck right now aren't the ones that don't have the tools or the technology or the devices. They're the ones who are still measuring production instead of developing agency. And what I'm going to show you today is that the solution already exists. It's backed by research, it has a name, and I'm going to show you exactly how to use it with your AI tools step by step, because AI is your teammate. And this type of experience never happens by default. It happens by design, so let's begin. Now, for decades, academic strength has been tied to independent production, memorization, and speed. AI pretty much came along and destabilized all three. But the deeper issue is that those measures were never really actually about intelligence. They were about compliance. Can you produce what was asked of you? Can you do it in the format that was requested? Can you do it by the deadline that was given to you? And that's not agency, that's execution. And these days, we are watching AI execute faster than any human. Now, agency is different. Agency is knowing what you know and what you don't. It's choosing a strategy and adjusting when things aren't working. It's deciding when to persist and be resilient and when to know when to pivot. It's evaluating information rather than just receiving it. These are the capacities that make someone genuinely capable and also irreplaceable in the world of AI. Now, cognitive science has a name for the sort of like engine underneath agency, and it's called metacognition, the ability to monitor and regulate your own thinking. And here's what makes this so urgent. Because AI compresses production time, which means the cognitive demand shifts upward. The question is whether our systems shift with it. Now we have data that says, yes, this works. Actually, there's a lot, but I'm just going to focus today on one. Now, when it comes to metacognition, there is a lot of research out there, but I'm going to focus on one that just came out recently by Nord Anglia Education. They partnered together with Boston College to basically look at what happens when you deliberately teach metacognition across all content areas. Now, they're a huge group, but they basically took 12,000 students across 27 of their schools across 20 countries and had teachers embed what are called visible thinking routines. Now, these are simple structures that basically ask students to pause, reflect, and explain how they're thinking before rushing to the answer. And the results were significant. Students showed a 21% growth in critical thinking, 20% growth in curiosity, and 15 to 16% growth in collaboration, commitment, and compassion. Now, these were in classrooms where it was done every once in a while, but in classrooms where these routines were used every single day, the growth for those numbers hit 40% across all skills and approached 50% in curiosity and compassion. But the numbers that matter most for agency were 85% of students said they felt an increase in knowing what they're good at. 76% said they felt an increase in independence of their learning. And 72% said it improved their understanding of how they learn, not just what they were learning. And that is a student who can walk into any room where AI is available and make a deliberate choice about when to use it, when to push through on their own, and when the struggle itself is the learning. And this, my friends, is how we help young people build human agency. So how can you actually build this and integrate this into your environments? This is where most people make a mistake, and it's the same mistake that actually undermines agency in the first place. They'll go to an AI tool like ChatGPT or Gemini and be like, oh, create a visible thinking routine for my class, or here's what I'm doing, just give me a visible thinking routine. And guess what AI tools tend to come back with? Routines like See, Think, Wonder, Think, Pair, Share, maybe KWL. It's the same 3 or 4 every single time. And it's not incorrect. Those are definitely routines, but they're also the most overused ones. For example, if I said to you earlier, when you heard earlier what I said, visible thinking routines, most people don't really know what they are. But if I say, oh, Think, Pair, Share, See, Think, Wonder, everyone's like, oh yeah, because you're used to hearing the same ones over and over again. But did you know there are hundreds more routines you can use? Now, these routines have all been curated by Harvard's Project Zero. There are so many different ones in there, and they're all organized by the type of skill it is you want to develop. They have routines for building curiosity, for deepening understanding, for exploring perspectives, for synthesizing ideas, for examining complexity, for helping kids do more closer reading. You name it, there is a routine for it. Now, if you outsource the selection to AI, you're going to likely end up with the most common routines. But if you start with your own human judgment, you go to Project Zero's Thinking Routine Toolbox and you browse the categories and you choose the routines that match the ones that you want to have your students do, and then you share those with the AI tool, the AI becomes an accelerator of your agency, not a replacement for it. Now, I call this way of working with AI tools prompting the human before the machine. The human defines the direction, AI builds around that choice, the human executes and kind of looks over and has that final judgment call. And so you can see it's kind of like human, AI, human. That's the pattern. And notice, this is the exact same pattern that we keep saying we want our students to develop. We want them to think first, use the tools deliberately, own the outcome. But if we don't model that ourselves and teach them explicitly how are they supposed to know? This happens by design, not by default. So let me show you what this looks like with 3 routines that most people don't always know exist and how to make each one concrete enough so that you could use it tomorrow. The first one I want to share is See, Think, Wonder. Most educators have heard of this one, but let me reframe it for the AI context. See, Think, Wonder asks, what do I notice? What do I think about this? And what does it make me wonder? And this matters more now because AI gives answers instantly. This routine builds the opposite muscle. It teaches students to slow down and observe before seeking answers. Again, that is agency. The choice to not immediately reach for a tool, the choice to have them do these on posters or in partners with pen and paper. In practice, you can give students an image, a data set, a primary source, or even an AI-generated response, and have them work through all 3 phases, like I said, on paper, Post-its, or a shared doc. Have students record a 60-second screencast where they narrate their thinking out loud as they're moving through each phase. That screencast is visible evidence of metacognition. You're not grading the answer anymore. You're watching someone exercise agency over their own thinking process. Lots of people like to complain about the role of technology, but when paired with these practices, technology actually becomes a way to give people more voice and choice. Let's do another one, 3-2-1 bridge. This one is really powerful and really underused, especially because so many people complain about kids reading. Now, before a lesson or a reading, you have students write down 3 words that come to mind about the topic, 2 questions that they have, and 1 metaphor. Then they go there, do their learning. They're reading, they're watching, they're experimenting with something, and after they do that learning, they come back and do it again. 3 new words, 2 new questions, 1 new analogy, and then the bridge. Explain how and why their thinking has shifted. Again, this is agency being made visible. Students are not just absorbing content, they're tracking the movement of their own understanding and growth and development. They can see themselves changing their mind, and they can articulate why. And that's the kind of self-awareness that no AI agent will ever have, the ability to narrate your own cognitive growth. Now, when it comes to implementation of this, again, I go back to Post-its. I'm a really big fan of using like pen paper for visible thinking routines, a really simple like 2-column like sheet, a short video even where students hold up their before and after and narrate because they're using visuals and kind of audio. So it's like a double explanation. And then that video becomes evidence of their learning. All right, let's do one more. Claim support question. This routine was tailor-made for the AI era before the AI era even existed. Students make a claim about something they've explored. They identify evidence that supports it, and then they generate a question the claim raises or doesn't answer. Now apply this directly to AI outputs. Have students prompt an AI tool, read what comes back, and then run claim support question on the response. What claim is the AI making? What evidence supports it? What's missing? What questions does this raise? You do not have to be banning AI, but we do have a responsibility to teach our young people how to exercise judgment over what it is producing because they're going to it every single day. This is one of the highest forms of agency in an AI world, not avoiding the tool, but being able to maintain your human control over it. Now, like I said, students can do these routines with pen, paper, on poster charts. I'm a really big fan of using them to get movement and discussion going, but the most important thing is that you are giving them a routine and putting them in the driver's seat. All right, now you've made your choices as the human. You know which routines develop agency, you kind of understand a little bit about the research. Now what we want to do is let AI do what it does best, go deep and fast. So here's how you're going to use AI as a teammate to help you integrate more visible thinking routines. To start, we're going to use deep research inside of Gemini, and I want you to put in the following prompt. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and open up Gemini, and we're going to turn on deep research, and then we're going to enter this prompt. What does current research say about metacognition and student learning outcomes on visible thinking routines? How does Harvard's Project Zero's visible thinking routines develop metacognitive skills? What does the research say about student agency, the ability to self-direct, self-monitor, and make deliberate choices? And how does metacognition develop it? How does building student agency relate to AI readiness, and why is human agency an essential skill in an AI-augmented world? I want you to build specific visible thinking routines using Harvard's Project Zero for K-12. Now, what's going to happen here is Gemini is now going to create a research plan and ask you to approve it. You want to go ahead and say approve plan. Now, as Gemini goes out and does the research that you can see here, it's basically searching across academic and education sources, and it is compiling a comprehensive report. Now, when you run this, the report is going to connect metacognition directly to student agency, pull specific data out for you, and pull specific routines that can be used across K-12. Now, you can obviously change some of the elements here when it comes to grade levels and things like that, but you have days of reading and research, maybe even months, structured and synthesized into one structured document. Now, we're going to come over here, go to the open triangle, and we are going to export this report to docs. We're going to save it because we're going to come back to it in just a little bit. All right, now step number 2, we want to basically create a shared source that we can give to everyone across the organization. So to do this, we're going to use Notebook LM. Now, I want you to go to notebooklm.google.com. You're going to create a new notebook. I would call it Metacognition and Student Agency. And one of the first things we're going to do is upload that Gemini research report. This is going to be the first source. Then we're going to go to Harvard's Visible Thinking Routines website, and I want you to download the PDFs for the different routines that you want. I would do as many as you possibly can, and I would upload these all in so that your notebook has the report, it has the visible thinking routines. If you want to add in the Nord Anglia Metacognition report or any other articles or research that you have, go ahead and put them in. Now you have a notebook that is grounded in your curated research and routines that you have chosen, not just the internet's generic answers. They're your sources, your frameworks, your choices, maybe even your district's mission, vision, values, or any other pieces you have. This is now a shared knowledge base that can be shared with your entire organization. Every single answer is going to be cited from the updated sources, and this is really what support looks like for people who are feeling really overwhelmed. One of the number one things I hear from people is like, okay, I know I need to focus more on process over product. I know metacognition matters, but how do I do this? These kinds of assets and a few shared prompts help people feel more empowered about focusing more of their time on execution and integration of what these experiences look like, and then can also come back and give you feedback. This is what went well, this is what didn't go well. And ultimately, this is what it means to have a human advantage. Everyone can put in a prompt, give me a visible thinking routine, and get generic answers. That's why people keep complaining about AI slop, but very few people, very few leadership teams are taking the time to actually create systems and train their people on how to integrate these new systems into the workflows that they are already doing. I find that we have so much incredible research out there on things that work at a time when a lot of people tell us, well, I don't really know what to do. But it's really the system that you create that's going to change people's practices. All right, so here's what we're going to do next. Now I want you to open up the Gemini chat. You actually have now this notebook that is your knowledge base, grounded in your sources. So like I said, people don't have to feel as pressured to be writing prompts, and you also get more quality control across your organization. So let's try 2 prompts for, say, people that don't have gems and things like that created, and they just want a prompt to put in. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do 2, one on lesson planning and one on workshop design. Now, the first one looks like this. So to do this, we're gonna go ahead and open up Gemini, and we're not gonna do anything specific. We're just gonna go to the regular prompt box. I'm teaching, put in a subject area or a unit on this topic, and then put the grade level. Say I'm using the visible thinking routines and research in this notebook, and I wanna design a lesson sequence that integrates routines at each phase. One to build curiosity before learning, one to track thinking during, and one to evaluate understanding after. For each routine, include at least 2 implementation options and identify what the student is deciding, not just doing. I only have 4 30-minute periods to do this assignment. Now, the key here is going to be going to the plus icon and uploading and adding the notebook. This now allows that prompt to use your notebook and the sources in there to begin curating a reply. And you're gonna notice it looks completely different than the person who just randomly goes in and uses that prompt without the notebook. Now, a lot of people are not just using this to design lessons. I've been using these for the last 15 years, not only in my own teaching practice, but also in my workshops. So let's try another prompt, this time for the person who is maybe designing a workshop. So for this one, we're again gonna do the plus, add the notebook, and then use this prompt. Design a 60-minute professional development workshop for educators who are new to visible thinking routines. Use the research findings in this notebook as the evidence base. Structure the workshop so participants experience at least 2 routines themselves before discussing implementation. Include a section where participants identify 1 routine they'll use in the next week and design their first implementation for them. End with a reflection so participants can track their own thinking. You are not just using this for your own classrooms, you can actually use this to teach people how to integrate these routines. Being able to put these things together honestly doesn't take more than 60 minutes. But when you do this, you're not just improving teaching and learning across your classrooms, you're also empowering people to design workshops for those who are leading change inside of your building. Every single prompt is going to draw from your sources when you create these notebooks, not just generic advice. And every single time you come back, the notebook will remember. That's how a one-time workshop becomes a living practice. Again, these things don't happen by default. They can only happen when we are intentional about the design of the experiences, but more importantly, the outcomes it is that we are looking for. Now, these skills really matter. The World Economic Forum says that nearly 40% of core skills are going to change by 2030. UNESCO is cautioning us against blanket AI bans. The US Department of Labor even just released a new national AI literacy framework. Every single signal is pointing in the same direction. The people who thrive, the organizations who thrive, won't be the ones that restrict. They'll be the ones who redesign. And the redesign starts with one question. Are you developing people, especially young people, who can comply, or people who can choose and have agency? Because AI agents are getting better at compliance every single day. They can follow instructions, execute tasks, optimize for outcomes, even tell you how your goal could be improved. What they cannot do, though, is decide what matters. They cannot notice when something is off. They cannot choose to pause, even though they will. They cannot sit with uncertainty long enough to find their own way through. This is what the human agency piece should be, and it is teachable. The pattern we follow today works for any educator, any subject, honestly, any organization. Prompt the human first, choose your routines, understand the research, define what matters, then let AI build. Use deep research, create notebooks, have a system that you are deploying across your organization, not just random tools. Once you build this toolkit, one routine at a time, you can keep going back to it over and over and over. And here's what I want you to remember. The most important skill in an AI-shaped world isn't always going to be prompting. It's going to be agency, knowing when to use the tool, when to think for yourself, and having the judgment to tell the difference. People who use that framework of starting with the human, letting the AI do the middle, then ending with the human are the ones whose prompting skills by default are going to improve. When we help people develop these skills, not just in adults, but also in young people, all of a sudden you don't fear AI anymore. You lead with it, but more importantly, you are empowered with it. If this video helped you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe. On this channel, we're not just reacting to change, we're designing for it one step at a time.